Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to do a deep dive on USAID.
USAID.
You know, that agency that's always doing work to improve lives all over the world.
Hmm.
We've got a ton of research and news articles here. Some of it's really fascinating.
Yeah.
Did you know that USAID tackles like everything from pandemics to deforestation?
Really?
I know. Crazy, right?
Hmm.
And how does that all tie back into U.S. foreign policy and global leadership?
Mm.
That's what we're going to be looking at today.
It's interesting how many people think that USA is just about handing out money,
Right.
but it's way more strategic than that. It's like
Yeah.
investing in a better future for I don't know, for everyone globally.
Yeah, it's an investment. It's not just a handout.
Right.
Okay, so before we get into all of that,
Hmm.
let's make sure that we're all on the same page about what USAID is.
Okay.
So USAID was founded by Kennedy during the Cold War.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's part of the State Department, but it operates independently.
So it's kind of a unique setup.
Yeah, it's a unique setup.
Interesting. Yeah, that independent structure gives them a lot of flexibility to kind of adapt to different situations and respond to emerging crises.
Hmm.
And their mission statement, it's deceptively simple.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it is. It's promote democratic governance, improve economic stability, alleviate poverty, and provide humanitarian relief.
So each one of those is like a huge undertaking on its own.
Each one of those is a massive undertaking. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So how do they actually put this mission into action? I mean, I'm guessing it's not just writing checks.
No, not at all. They have a whole bunch of different functions and goals. Let's take, for example, economic growth.
Okay.
USI invests in things like infrastructure, agriculture, education. They're trying to help developing countries build, sustainable economies.
That makes sense. But what does that look like on the ground? You got any stories that show how this actually works?
Sure, sure. So one example that comes to mind is their work in Ghana. So USI partnered with local farmers there to improve their maize yields.
Phase.
Yeah, maize. They introduced better farming techniques, higher quality seeds, and this led to a really significant increase in production,
Wow.
which not only boosted the local economy but also improved food security for the people in the region.
So it's like a chain reaction.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
improving farming practices leads to more food and a stronger economy.
It's all interconnected. Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. But what about when things go really wrong?
Like, what do you mean?
Like during a natural disaster or, like a conflict?
Yeah.
That's where humanitarian aid kicks in, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Think of USAID as like a first responder,
Okay.
but on a global scale.
Global scale.
They provide, food, shelter, medical care,
The essentials.
the essentials to people who are facing these kinds of crises.
Mhm.
So it's really a critical part of what they do.
I can only imagine how tough it must be to work in those situations.
Right.
Like it's got to be incredibly challenging and even dangerous sometimes.
It's both of those things.
Yeah.
Which is why their global health initiatives are so crucial. They work on some of the biggest health challenges we face, like HIV/AIDS,
Okay.
malaria, tuberculosis, these kinds of things.
Yeah, I've heard about PEPFAR,
PEPFAR.
the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief.
Mm-hmm.
Is that run by USAID?
That's right. That's right. And it's had a huge impact.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. PEPFAR has provided billions of dollars in funding for treatment and prevention programs, mostly focused on sub-Saharan Africa,
Okay.
which is where the HIV/AIDS epidemic has hit the hardest. And it's credited with saving millions of lives.
Really?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's pretty incredible.
And they don't do it alone, right? I mean, they partner with other organizations too.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure, for sure. USAID works with groups like the Global Fund and the GAVI Alliance.
GAVI Alliance.
You can kind of think of them as a dream team in the global health arena.
Okay.
These partnerships are all about, pooling resources and expertise
To maximize their impact.
to really maximize their impact. Yeah, it's a smart approach.
It makes total sense.
Yeah.
Now let's kind of shift gears a little bit and talk about something a little more abstract, democracy and governance.
Okay.
It's a core part of USAID's mission, but how do they actually support those principles in other countries?
It's a good question. You can think of it this way. USAID helps people build a future for themselves where they have a voice and a say in how things are run.
Right.
And they do this by supporting things like fair elections, strengthening the rule of law, and promoting human rights.
So it's about giving people the tools and resources they need to create like a just and equitable society.
Yeah, exactly. And that brings us to another really critical piece of the puzzle, the environment.
The environment.
Climate change, deforestation, pollution, these are all pressing issues that USAI is actively addressing.
Okay, I'm really curious about this. How do they even begin to approach such complex environmental challenges?
It's a big undertaking, but they have a number of different initiatives. One example is their work restoring degraded forests in the Amazon basin.
Wait, the Amazon?
Yeah.
That's incredible. How are they involved in that?
So they're providing, funding and technical expertise to support sustainable forestry practices
Okay.
and help communities protect their forests from illegal logging and deforestation.
So it's a win-win for the environment
Yeah,
and the people who depend on these forests for their livelihoods.
exactly.
Wow, that's quite an undertaking.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see just how far-reaching USAID's work really is.
He really is, yeah.
And we haven't even touched on education yet.
Oh, that's right. That's right. They invest quite heavily in improving access to quality education, especially for, girls in marginalized communities.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I know how much of a difference education can make in people's lives.
For sure.
Yeah.
One, really powerful example of their work in this area is in Afghanistan.
Okay.
Despite the incredibly challenging circumstances there, USAID has been instrumental in building schools, training teachers, and, providing educational materials.
Wow.
This has helped bring education to millions of children, especially girls who were previously denied this fundamental right.
That's amazing. All right, so we've covered a lot about what USAID does, but what about the why?
Why?
How does all this tie back to the United States and its role in the world?
That's where we get into the geopolitical influence of USAID, and it's a fascinating area.
Okay.
In many ways, you can think of USAID as a tool of what they call soft power for the U.S.
Soft power. What does that mean exactly?
So it's about influencing the world through, persuasion and attraction rather than force or coercion.
Yeah.
By promoting development and stability around the globe, USAID strengthens relationships, builds trust, and ultimately advances, U.S. interests abroad.
So it's not just about altruism. It's a strategic way for the U.S. to exert influence and achieve its foreign policy goals.
It's a combination of both. It's doing good while also, advancing U.S. interests.
Yeah.
By helping other nations succeed, the U.S. enhances its own security and prosperity in the long run.
That makes sense. But how does this benefit like the average American? Why should we care about what USAID is doing in, I don't know, rural Ghana or Afghanistan?
That's a great question and one a lot of people ask. In today's world, we're all interconnected. What happens in one corner of the globe can have, ripple effects that reach us all. By promoting stability and development, USAID is creating a more peaceful, prosperous, and secure world for everyone, including Americans.
It's like that saying, "No man is an island."
Exactly.
We're all part of this global village,
Right.
and we sink or swim together. Okay, so now I want to get into some of the specific programs that USAID runs.
Okay.
There were a couple that really jumped out at me. Let's start with Feed the Future. It's a catchy name.
It is catchy.
What's it all about?
Feed the Future is all about tackling, global hunger and food insecurity.
Right.
It's a U.S. government initiative operating in 19 countries, mostly in Africa and Central America.
Okay.
And they're working to, improve agricultural productivity, strengthen markets, empower smallholder farmers, all of these things.
That's a huge undertaking. It is.
Have they seen any results?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The numbers speak for themselves.
Okay.
Feed the Future has helped to lift over 23 million people out of poverty
Wow.
and improve the nutrition of over 50 million children.
That's remarkable.
Yeah. It is.
So it's not just about providing food aid. It's about tackling the root causes of hunger and building sustainable solutions.
Exactly. It's a long-term approach to food security. Now, another program that caught my eye was Power Africa.
Oh yeah, that one sounded interesting. What's the story there?
Power Africa is focused on expanding um, access to reliable and sustainable electricity in sub-Saharan Africa.
You might think, why
Yeah,
electricity? But it's absolutely transformative for development.
it really is. I mean, we take electricity for granted here, but it powers everything in our lives, right? From homes and businesses to schools and hospitals.
Absolutely. Access to electricity unlocks potential and drives economic growth.
Okay, but what makes Power Africa so unique?
I would say it's the scale of their ambition.
Uh,
They've mobilized over $70 billion in public and private investments to achieve their goals.
wow.
It's a prime example of how public-private partnerships can leverage resources to make a real impact.
That's impressive. It sounds like USAID is making some serious headway with these programs, but I'm guessing they also face their fair share of challenges.
Of course, of course. No organization is perfect,
Right, yeah.
and USAID is no exception. There are legitimate criticisms and challenges that need to be
All right,
addressed.
let's get into that. What are some of the main criticisms leveled against USAID?
Well, one that comes up a lot is the potential for, political influence.
Okay.
Some argue that USAID, including, USAID funding, can be used to advance U.S. political and economic interests, which raises concerns about whether aid is always going where it's most needed, or if there are, strings attached.
That's a fair point.
Yeah.
We have to acknowledge that possibility. What about the effectiveness of their programs? I mean, how do we know if they're actually making a difference? I imagine it's pretty hard to measure the impact of this kind of work.
It's incredibly complex.
Yeah.
It's not always easy to quantify the long-term effects of a particular program, especially in such, diverse and dynamic environments.
Yeah.
But USAI has been working to improve its monitoring and evaluation processes, to try to get a clear picture of what's working and what's not.
So it's not just about throwing money at problems.
No.
They're also trying to make sure those investments are having a real impact.
Exactly, exactly. And it's important to remember that there have been both successes and failures along the way.
Right.
Development work is tough. There's no one-size-fits-all solution.
Right, right. We also can't forget about the security risks involved in this kind of work.
Oh, sure.
I mean, USAID operates in some pretty dangerous places.
That's right. Working in conflict zones and, politically unstable regions is inherently risky for USAID staff and their partners.
Hmm.
They've had to adapt by relying more on local staff and contractors
Right.
and by coordinating closely with security forces to mitigate the dangers as much as possible.
It's incredible to think about the dedication and bravery of those working on the ground in those challenging environments.
Right.
They're the real heroes of this story.
They are, and their work highlights, just how crucial USAID is in promoting U.S. foreign policy goals and global leadership.
So it's about more than just providing aid.
Right.
It's about projecting American values and influence on the world stage.
Right. USAID is a key player in U.S. diplomacy. They're building relationships, fostering cooperation, tackling, shared global challenges,
Yeah.
all of these things.
This is really fascinating. It seems like there's so many layers to USAID's work.
There are a lot of layers, and that brings us to a really crucial question.
Okay.
Is USAID an effective tool for U.S. foreign policy?
That's a big one.
It is a big question.
And I think we're just getting started.
Yeah,
We'll have to dive into that more when we continue our deep dive in the next episode.
definitely.
So stay tuned.
Yeah, it's a big question, and there's no simple answer. I mean, USAID's effectiveness, it really depends on a lot of factors, like the specifics of each program, the political climate, the strength of their local partnerships.
So there are nuances we need to consider. It's not just a yes or no.
Exactly. There are compelling arguments on both sides. I mean, on the one hand, USAID has achieved some truly incredible things.
Yeah, we've seen massive progress in global health, poverty reduction, and democratic development because of their work.
Yeah, we talked about PEPFAR and Feed the Future earlier. I mean, those are prime examples of successful initiatives, right?
Exactly, exactly. And those successes, they demonstrate USAID's potential to, really create positive change on a global scale.
Hmm.
But on the flip side, we can't ignore the criticisms, those concerns about political influence, the difficulties of measuring impact, the risks they face operating in these tough environments. I mean, these are all valid points that deserve careful consideration.
So it's kind of a balancing act, weighing the potential benefits against the potential risks and challenges.
That's it. And ultimately, everyone needs to form their own opinion based on the evidence and the various perspectives that are involved. I'm struck by how much USAID's work overlaps with some of the biggest global challenges that we're facing today, like from pandemics to climate change to democratic backsliding. I mean, USAID is on the front lines of it all.
That's a really sharp observation, and it speaks to how USAID's mission has evolved over time. I mean, it used to be primarily about Cold War politics,
Right.
and containing communists.
Containing communism.
But over the years, the agency has really adapted to a much wider range of global issues.
So it's not just about reacting to crises anymore.
Yeah.
They're trying to shape a more stable and prosperous future.
Precisely, and that requires thinking long term,
Right.
and committing to strong partnerships with other countries and organizations.
It's really interesting to see how USAID's role has changed over the years, and it makes me wonder what the future holds for them.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
But it's tough to answer definitively. I mean, the world is constantly changing, and USAID will need to keep adapting to new challenges and opportunities.
Like what kind of challenges are you thinking about?
Well, the world is becoming more complex and interconnected all the time. I mean, the rise of new technologies, the growing threat of climate change, the return of authoritarianism.
Yeah.
These are all trends that will have a big impact on USAID's work.
So they'll need to be flexible
Mhm.
and innovative to stay ahead of the curve.
Absolutely, and they'll need to continue building those strong partnerships
Yeah.
within the U.S. government, with international organizations, and with with local communities around the world.
It sounds like USAID has a lot to contend with moving forward. But let's bring it back to our listener.
Okay.
Why should they care about USAID and its mission?
That's the key question, isn't it? As we discussed earlier, we live in an interconnected world, right? The problems that USAID tackles, poverty, disease, conflict, climate change, these aren't just problems over there.
Right.
They affect us all.
So it's not just about helping others. It's about self-interest too. We're all in this together.
Exactly. That's why it's so important for citizens to be informed about USAID's work,
Right.
and to engage in discussions about the role of U.S. foreign aid and development assistance.
Well said. Well said. Speaking of those discussions, I have one more question that's been on my mind throughout this whole deep dive.
Okay.
Given all the challenges and criticisms we've discussed, do you think USAID is ultimately an effective tool for U.S. foreign policy?
Yeah.
Is it worth the investment?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And as I said earlier, there's no easy answer. There are strong arguments to be made on both sides.
So, what are some of the key factors that we should consider when trying to answer that question?
Well, I think first and foremost, we need to look at the results. Are USAID programs actually achieving their intended goals?
Right.
Are they actually making a difference in the lives of the people they're designed to help?
We need to look beyond the talking points and just focus on the tangible outcomes, what's actually happening on the ground.
Precisely. And we need to be realistic about the complexity of this kind of work. I mean, development is a long game. It requires patience, persistence, and the willingness to adapt to changing circumstances.
It's about taking a long-term view and accepting that progress can be slow and incremental.
Right. And then there's the cost factor. U.S. foreign aid, it makes up a small percentage of the federal budget, but it's still a significant investment.
Yeah.
We need to ask ourselves, are we Are we getting a good return on that investment?
Right.
Are there more effective ways to achieve our foreign policy goals?
These are all valid questions,
Yeah.
and it sounds like there's no single right answer.
No.
It depends on the specific program and the overall goals of U.S. foreign policy.
You got it. It's a nuanced issue that requires careful analysis and thoughtful debate.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We've explored the history, the mission, the key programs, the challenges and the criticisms of USAID. It's been quite the deep dive,
It has been a fascinating deep dive with a lot of thought-provoking insights.
and we've only scratched the surface.
Yeah.
There's so much more to learn about this complex organization.
Absolutely. We encourage our listeners to keep digging, explore the issues we've raised, and form their own opinions.
We've talked a lot about USAID's effectiveness and its role in U.S. foreign policy, but I want to zoom in on something specific now, the actual programs that they run. Let's start with one that deals with a pretty fundamental need, food.
Okay.
Tell me about Feed the Future.
So Feed the Future, that's a great example of how USAID tackles a complex problem with a multi-pronged approach.
Okay.
As the name suggests, it's all about combating global hunger and food insecurity. It's a U.S. government initiative that works in 19 countries,
Okay.
mostly in Africa and Central America.
Okay, so what makes Feed the Future different from just sending food aid?
It's about empowering people to feed themselves, sustainably. They work on improving agricultural practices, strengthening local markets, helping small-scale farmers thrive. It's about creating long-term solutions rather than, just temporary fixes.
So they're not just giving handouts. They're investing in people's ability to provide for themselves and their community.
Exactly. And the
Yeah.
and the impact is really impressive.
Yeah.
They've helped millions of people lift themselves out of poverty
Wow.
and improved the nutrition of millions of children.
That's incredible. Okay, so now I want to shift gears to something a bit more electrifying.
Electrifying.
Power Africa. What's the story behind that one?
Power Africa, that's all about bringing reliable and sustainable electricity to sub-Saharan Africa.
Mhm.
And it's not just about, flipping a switch.
Right.
Access to electricity is a game changer for communities.
I can see that. I mean, it powers homes, businesses, schools, hospitals. It's hard to imagine modern life without it.
Mm.
But what makes Power Africa so special?
I would say it's the sheer scale of their ambition. I mean, Power Africa has managed to attract over $70 billion
Wow.
in public and private investment. They're bringing together governments, businesses, and NGOs to make this vision a reality.
That's a huge amount of money and a testament to the power of collaboration.
Yeah.
It sounds like Power Africa is making serious strides in electrifying the continent. But let's be honest, not everything USAID does is a success story. I mean, they've faced their fair share of criticism over the years.
That's true. No organization is immune to criticism, and USAID has been scrutinized for a variety of reasons.
So let's unpack some of those criticisms. What are the main concerns that people have raised about USAID's work?
Well, one of the most common criticisms is that USA projects can be too focused on American interests. Okay.
And not enough on the needs of the recipient countries.
So there's a concern that USA might be using aid to push a particular political agenda or economic advantage.
Exactly. It raises questions about the true motivations behind some of their projects and whether aid is always going where it's most needed.
That's a valid point. It's important to be aware of those potential biases. What about the effectiveness of USAID programs in general? How do we know if they're actually making a difference on the ground?
Measuring the impact of development work, that's notoriously difficult.
Yeah.
It's not like a scientific experiment where you can control all the variables. You're dealing with complex social, economic, and political factors that are constantly in flux.
So how does USAID go about evaluating its programs? Well, they use a variety of methods, including surveys, data analysis, case studies. They also work closely with local partners to gather feedback and assess the impact of their programs.
It sounds like they're putting in a lot of effort to make sure their programs are actually achieving their goals.
They are, but it's an ongoing challenge. There's always room for improvement, and they need to be transparent about their methods and findings so that people can assess their effectiveness for themselves.
Transparency is key,
Yeah.
especially when you're dealing with public funds and such important issues. Another concern that comes to mind is the security risk involved in USAID's work.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they often operate in some pretty dangerous places.
That's right. Working in conflict zones and politically unstable regions, that puts USAID staff and their partners at risk. It's a constant concern for the agency. They've had to adapt by relying more on local staff and contractors
Yeah.
who have a better understanding of the local context and security situation.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But it must still be a difficult balancing act.
Absolutely. They have to weigh the need to deliver aid with the safety of their personnel,
Yeah.
and there's no easy answer.
This all paints a pretty complex picture of USAID.
Yeah.
They're clearly doing some important work,
Yeah.
but they also face significant challenges and criticisms. It's a lot to take in.
It is, but I think it's important to remember that USAID, like any large organization, is made up of individuals who are dedicated to making a difference in the world. They're working on some incredibly tough issues, and they deserve our respect for that.
I agree. We may not always agree with their approach or their priorities,
Mhm.
but we should acknowledge the effort they're putting in to try and make the world a better place.
Well said. And that brings us back to the question we posed earlier: is USAID an effective tool of U.S. foreign policy? Is it worth the investment?
I'm not sure if we've answered that question definitively, but I think we've provided our listener with a lot of information and different perspectives to consider.
And ultimately, that's our goal.
Right.
We want to empower our listeners to form their own informed opinions
Right.
about USAID and the broader questions of foreign aid and global engagement.
Exactly. We've provided the information and the context. Now it's up to each individual to decide what they think.
And to continue the conversation.
Right.
These are important issues that deserve our attention and our engagement.
Well said. Well said. It's been a pleasure diving deep with you and our listener today. Until next time, keep those minds curious and those conversations flowing. It's easy to get kind of caught up in the numbers and the policy debates and all that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, USA's work is about people, right?
Yeah, it really is. It's about improving lives, creating opportunities, empowering communities. It's about making a tangible difference in the world, one person at a time.
And those individual stories, those human connections, I think those are often the most powerful reminders of why this work matters.
They really are, and they can also be the most challenging aspects of development work.
Yeah, how so?
Well, because development isn't just about, building infrastructure or providing resources. It's about understanding people's needs, respecting their cultures, and working collaboratively to find solutions that are sustainable and empowering.
So it's about building trust,
Yeah.
right? And relationships.
Exactly. And that takes time, patience, and a willingness uh, to listen and learn.
It's not always easy, especially when you're working in different cultures and contexts.
No, it's not. But it's essential. And when it's done right, the results can be truly transformative.
I'd love to hear an example of that, a story that illustrates the human impact of USAID's work.
Okay, sure. One story that comes to mind is about a young woman named Fatima. She lives in a rural village in Senegal.
Okay, tell me about Fatima.
So Fatima, she grew up in a community where girls rarely had the opportunity to go to school,
Right.
but a USAID supported program helped to build a new school in her village, and Fatima was one of the first girls to enroll.
That's wonderful. What happened next?
Well, Fatima, she excelled in her studies. You know,
Uh-huh.
she was a bright and determined student,
Mm.
and she realized that education was the key to a better future, not just for herself, but for her entire community.
So what did she do?
After she finished school, Fatima, she became a teacher herself.
Oh, wow.
You know, she wanted to give other girls the same opportunity that she had been given, and she became a really vocal advocate for girls' education in her village and beyond.
Wow, that's an inspiring story. It
Right.
shows how one person can make a real difference.
It really does, and it highlights the ripple effect of USAID's work. You know, by investing in education, they're not just helping individual students like Fatima.
Right.
They're empowering entire communities and generations to come.
It's a reminder that development is about so much more than just, money or infrastructure. It's about investing in people's potential, right?
Yeah.
And giving them the tools they need to build a better future for themselves and their communities.
Absolutely, and that's what makes this work so rewarding, despite all the challenges.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We've explored the complexities of USAID from its origins and mission to its programs and impact. We've discussed the criticisms and challenges, as well as the successes and the inspiring stories of individuals like Fatima.
Yeah, it's been a fascinating journey,
It really has.
and I hope our listener has come away with a deeper understanding of USAID and the role that it plays in the world.
I hope so too. We've tried to present a balanced and nuanced perspective, recognizing that USAID is a complex organization with both, strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, absolutely. And ultimately we want to empower our listeners to form their own opinions about USAID and the broader questions of foreign aid and global engagement.
Exactly. We've provided the information and the context. Now it's up to each individual to decide what they think.
And to continue the conversation.
Right.
These are important issues that deserve our attention and our engagement.
Well said. Well said. It's been a pleasure diving deep with you and our listener today.
Yeah.
Until next time, keep those minds curious and those conversations flowing.